Over 1,000 years ago in Universe 6, a Saiyan child was born. This child went on to be the worst offender in the history of the universe. He was labeled as Zykor, the embodiment of desire, and right now, he's telling Vegeta the story of his earlier days. So this is going to be part 10 of our What If Goku and Vegeta Wish Their Tails Back saga. If you guys aren't caught up by now already somehow, definitely be sure to go check out the previous parts. They are absolutely crucial into understanding what's going on now, as well as the events that are going to happen next. The goal for this video is going to be 3,000 likes, so be sure to like and share the video, and also subscribe if you guys haven't already. But without further ado, alright, so where do we pick up off at now? Well, Vegeta has just defeated Zykor and earned his respect. The two of them walk away from King Sadala's palace into a quiet place where they can just look deep into the cosmos and have a conversation. This is when Zykor reveals his real name, Cumber. Vegeta finds this somewhat unusual, so he asks, "Why have you been hiding it all the way up until now?" "Well, do not be confused, Vegeta. It's not the name itself that I was hiding," Zykor says. "Same goes for my Primal Saiyan form. There are implications behind them that I don't really want to acknowledge yet. You're the last person who will ever know the truth about who I am," Zykor continues. "Born as a weak and frail kid, honestly, I was an anomaly among all of the Saiyans who were born in that particular decade. My power level was closer to 0 than to 1. I had a lifeless aura and barely a visible tail. It was honestly a miracle that I was still alive. The only reason I wasn't killed off was because of my bloodline. I was the king's son, something I didn't find out about until much later on in life." "Was your father weak or ill by any chance?" Vegeta asks. "Perhaps, but first let's talk about the few years I spent on planet Magos. Maybe it's because the planet is home to the greatest mages in the universe. For some reason, the Saiyans thought I'd live a better life there than on my own planet. I guess it was their way of forsaking me. I was sent to planet Magos where an old mage picked me up. He had called me by the name Cumber and raised me like his own son. Without even realizing it, I grew up to be a strong kid, and then at the age of 5, when the old mage, who at that time was already well over 400 years old, sat me down next to him and told me a story. 5 years ago, there was a weak and pale kid who crash landed on this planet. An old mage picked him up and called him by the name that was embezzled onto his space pod. The infant was surely going to die. The only way to save him was for the old mage to share his own magical life force, and he knew it. In fact, that was what he was planning to do. He was fully intent on dying for the sake of this infant to survive. However, when he started sharing his energy, something inside of the infant awakened. His tail sprung out of his back and he slowly opened his eyes. A brutal death glare. This restricts the mage in his tracks, as he had given the infant some of his own magical life force, but not enough for himself to drop dead. Did he change his mind? No. It was that death glare which gave the mage a bad feeling about giving him even more of his magical life force. Vegeta would then interrupt, saying, "Wait, isn't he just talking about you? What happened next?" "Stop interrupting, I was getting to that," Zykor replies, and then he continues. "Of course, back then, I had no idea that he was talking about me, nor did I know that these were his last moments. He used growth magic to enlarge my tail and then left me with these words. 'Live, Cumber. Your name symbolizes health and vitality. You must live,' and faded away with a smile on his face." I had no concept of death back then. I thought maybe it's just a trick, that he'll come back soon, right? Well, days turned into weeks and then months, but nobody returned. We lived alone in a secluded forest, so there was no one I could turn to for help. Then one day, I remembered the mage's love for fish and decided to go get some. Went to the river, had no luck there, then to the lake, but still no luck again, until finally, while passing by a big tree, I spotted this unusual looking ball. I approached it to take a closer look, and then suddenly, it hit me. there was a name written on it, and it was Cumber. I knew nothing about the universe, nothing about my race, not even anything about the planet I was currently living on. The only thing I knew, the only thing I could experience, was pure chaotic rage about it all. I no longer cared about the old mage. The fact that I knew nothing drove me insane. Just what the hell is going on? I screamed and unleashed a sinister pulse that sent a ripple throughout the entire planet. A herd of mages started appearing right in front of me. They kind of sensed the old mage's magical energy within me and automatically assumed that I took his life or something like that. I didn't care either. If they were approaching me with the intention to kill, I simply returned that intent. I killed one mage and then another and then some more. As the kill count continued to increase, so did that magical energy within me. Something inside of me was absorbing their life force and making me stronger, healthier, and definitely more vital. At only age 5, I had killed 2,000 mages on planet Magos. Vegeta then asked, "Is that supposed to be a big deal or something?" Well, yeah. Apparently Universe 6 is very high on the magic rating scale, and so every one of those mages is responsible for maintaining the flow. I didn't know this at the time though, up until about the age of 13. I continued my killing spree because I enjoyed the boost in magical power, I'll be honest. It felt so good. By age 15, I had more magic in my veins than blood, but once again, I didn't know. Eventually, when over 90% of the mages were taken out, they initiated a spell which transported me back to the Saiyan planet. Imagine my father's surprise when the newborn he abandoned all those years ago suddenly appeared in his face as a 15-year-old boy. Meanwhile, as Zykor continues to tell his hellish story, Whis and Vados are about to execute on the orders given to them by the Grand Priest. They arrive at the location of planet Magos and prepare to revive all of its former glory. Whis and Vados are reviving the planet and the magical energy along with it. They both get flashbacks of the events that took place over 1,000 years ago. How Zykor essentially tapped into primal instinct at the age of 5, not just because of his unusual disposition, but also because of that magical life force he was given. It fueled the primal gene within him. He was still a kid though, so other than the killing of those mages, there wasn't much his body could do. He didn't know how to fly either. However, after he was abruptly transported to the Saiyan planet, Zykor had another awakening. It didn't take him long to realize that the king was his father and that all of these clueless clowns who forsake him are actually several tiers weaker than him. Coincidentally, that was the night of the full moon. Zykor began to transform. He would enter the primal Uzaru state and then jumped back into the cosmos. The beast was driven by pure chaos. Primal instinct was manipulating the hyperspace and shifting the energy of the universe in real time. And the reason why his impact on the universe was so everlasting is because Zykor also possessed the magical force of the blessed race of mages. The combination of primal instinct and the magical flow of the universe enabled him to permanently damage the frequency of the universe, which is a violation worse than killing a Supreme Kai. His Uzaru state continued for 10 years. He did a lot of damage during that time, of course. Those 10 years were marked as the Dark Age. Destroyer Champa was asleep. The Supreme Kai feared him as much as the Supreme Kai of Universe 7 feared Majin Buu. Isn't this kind of the same thing that's happening with Broly right now, Vados asks? No, Goku managed to help Broly avoid succumbing to his Uzaru state. Broly isn't that far gone, Whis replies. Indeed. Zykor's rage, however, is different. His primal instinct was more raw and random because he hasn't even tapped into the actual transformation yet. It was simply running on all cylinders. At one point, the dark energy itself tried to shove him out of the universe because, for what it's worth, he was an impurity. The Supreme Kai capitalized on this idea and used a spell to send Zykor to Universe 7. However, Beerus wasn't asleep, unlike Champa. Since the angels can't interfere directly, he was their only hope now. The Grand Priest once said that fate works in strange ways, and what happens next is the perfect example of this analogy. During this time, a Saiyan legend named Yamoshi became the legendary Super Saiyan in a struggle against the evil Saiyans. Zykor was kicked out of Universe 6 right before this. Events aligned in such a way that Yamoshi caught a glimpse of Zykor in the cosmos of Universe 7 before he became the legendary Super Saiyan, and just like him, Zykor felt a little calmed down when he sensed another Saiyan awakening. For the first time in 10 years, he had reverted back to his regular size while still in his primal instinct state. He felt strong, he felt ruthless, and more importantly, he felt freed of those shackles. Beerus had already been informed of Zykor's arrival as he was there waiting, together with Whis, and saw it all happen. He saw Yamoshi transform into the legendary Super Saiyan, and he saw Zykor revert back. And these events could very well be what sparked those dreams in Beerus that caused him to awaken many years later in search for the Super Saiyan God. The simultaneous happening of those two events fueled Beerus' appetite unlike any food he had ever eaten before. But he decides to be a responsible adult and takes Zykor back to Universe 6, where he then wakes up Champa and tells him to deal with his own situation. When Beerus returns, he takes a few days long nap and plans to go meet Yamoshi after this. Be that as it may, Zykor did almost lose to Champa. He knew that the Destroyer is gonna be a problem, and he had also learned about the connection with the Supreme Kai. So, what does Zykor plan to do next? Of course, he actually is gonna go and kill the Supreme Kai. The Grand Priest, of course, didn't want things to reach the point of no return, and so he personally revives the Supreme Kai right at the moment he's killed. He's also the one who decided to punish Zykor with the non-existence. And just like that, everyone's memory of him and what he did got erased. Things eventually would go back to normal. Perhaps not because the mages started having premonitions about a tail beast who will eventually kill them, and so they took precautions and rid all of the Saiyans of their tails. They may have forgotten about Zykor now, but that sense of danger is still there. And of course, Beerus would also forget. The only thing he could remember now was that faint image of Yamoshi, but he can't quite pinpoint or name what it is, and so he kind of forgets all about it for the time being. Eventually, 1,000 years later, this faint image starts appearing in his dream, and of course, this would lead to Super Saiyan God Goku. Right now, Beerus is asleep, but when Whis is gonna wake him up, he will instantly remember the actual reason behind those dreams and how he already knew the incoming rival long before the Oracle Fish made that premonition. So going back to Zykor and Vegeta, he's done telling his story now, at least up until the point of non-existence, and then how he killed the last mage of planet Magos out of spite after he broke free. Subsequently, the endless slaps back and forth by Goku finally worked because Broly has now come back to his senses. All thanks to Goku, Universe 7 was able to avoid pretty much all of the destruction that was caused in Universe 6 a millennia ago. Okay Broly, from now on, I want you to meditate with Piccolo every single day for an entire month, Goku asserts. Broly nods as Piccolo looks at Goku like he's lost his damn mind and then just runs away. Then there's the Grand Priest. He would go into his room and take out a scroll. He opens it and wonders, would it be better to just kill the Saiyans, or perhaps there's a way to institutionalize this primal instinct?